This episode is brought to you by Inner Balance Massage Therapy, located downtown Ballston Spa. Inner Balance offers all styles, a long list of products, and relief from the everyday wear and tear. Call Nancy at 518-588-4949 or go online and book an appointment at www.innerbalancement.com. Call Nancy and mention this ad, and she'll give you $15 off. Nancy at Inner Balance Massage Therapy.
Disclaimer. The hosts of this podcast, Timothy Patrick and Will Foley, are by no means medical professionals. However, having lived experience with mental illness themselves, they have gained useful perspectives on common mental health issues that some of us struggle to overcome on a daily basis. By sharing their stories, they hope to create connection. By creating connection, they hope to help you find your purpose. And through purpose, we can all begin to build the foundations for positive mental health. This is Above Ground Podcast.
Are you ready to lace up your boots, throw up your horns, and jump into the pit? Then let's stomp the stigmas of mental illness. It's time for Above Ground Podcast. Now, Will Foley and Timothy Patrick.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to Above Ground Podcast.
Above Ground Podcast, because you can't serve below.
Because you can't serve below. You know who that is? You down with TPP?
Yeah, you know me.
What's up, Timmy?
What's up, Will?
Dude, it's another week, man.
Another week. We survived another week.
We have. And, you know, it's time to look.
Time to look. Time to look what? Look where? Look up, down?
Into the eyes.
Eyes.
Eyes of a stranger.
To the eyes of a stranger. We're looking in the eyes of a stranger. No one knows what lies behind the mask.
That's right, the mask. We like to talk about masks.
Yeah.
Masks are very, there's a lot of...
well, Will says we all wear masks, right? We all have masks for different...
have masks. We all have masks. We actually talked about that recently with Jordan, too.
Yeah.
About masks. Just about these roles that we play.
Roles.
And an event, and that's essentially what we are doing. Our real self is wrapped up in these roles, and we hide behind these masks. And whether the mask is positive, because it could be a mask. I think we're always in an opera, and we're always, you know.
Do you think people are scared, like afraid to know yourself or know?
Yes.
Afraid what you might see?
Yes, I think people are so afraid at looking at themselves that they have to put on these masks to feel normal for them.
Okay.
I think there's, and again, you know, that's part of that's one of the biggest things, man, that you have to realize this is self-work. This isn't about, we're not telling you to do something. I'm not trying to sell you on some theory. I'm not trying to sell you on anything. What I'm trying to say is that in order for you to find out if this is true or not, or right or not, you have to find out for yourself. And the only way to do that is to take off the mask. Because your character, if you know what I mean? It's
right, yeah, you're never going to really find what it is. You're never going to really you're never going to be able to pinpoint, you know. You're never going to be able to put that line through the tic-tac-toe.
No, you're never going to be able to have all your X's.
Yeah.
If you don't do that work. But now, when you start to take the masks off, and you just start to realize that they're just characters that you play. You're the character of dad. You're the character of worker. You're the character of artist. You're the character of, you know, whatever. But that's not your real self.
Right. It's funny. Before we started recording tonight, our gracious host and producer, Mr. Hallam.
That's right.
We were talking about comedians and kind of I don't want to say focus, but they come out and they do an act to almost, you know, mask their insecurities, you know, and they hide kind of behind the comedy of it.
Well, their mask, though, it's funny that you bring up comedians because I've recently been watching a lot of Jim Carrey's interviews in recent weeks, and I really thought that a lot of people have complained about SNL, and SNL goes through ups and downs. Some seasons are really good, some aren't, but I think he's been so good as Joe Biden that.
I haven't even seen it.
Oh, dude, he's got the faces.
Yeah.
He looks like it's awesome, and because he's such a good character actor. But
yeah.
when you think about and what he said in an interview that I had heard recently is that his stand-up actually, like stand-up comedians, I think are the truest form of art because they can they use their pain,
right?
And they're a lot of them are so more than willing to share that, man. Like Kevin Hart and Jim Carrey and like so many of those comedians are just so good at being able to laugh at themselves that there's nothing to hide behind. I mean, it's very hard to make people laugh. And when you got to constantly come up with jokes, I mean, people can make songs, and if it's got a good beat, somebody's going to tap their foot. But it takes a lot to make somebody laugh.
Yeah, you could be right there.
So,
especially about certain subjects, you know?
Oh, yeah, especially about the painful ones.
Yeah.
Especially about the painful ones.
But I do think there's a lot of musicians that put a lot of their pain into what they do, and it comes out.
Oh, absolutely, and I'm not making that. That's not an argument.
No, yeah.
That I would be.
It was just an observation.
Some are very good at it.
Yeah.
Some are very good at really capturing that pain in ways that I'm only really surfacing now, like being able to do. Like it's been a while, and the last few newer songs I've written, I've really tapped into my own stuff.
Yeah.
Finally, like being able to like look at it with an authentic voice without wearing a mask and being like, okay, you know, there's no mask here. It's not, you know, and I think your authenticity is your authenticity is your bank account. You know what I mean? The more authentic you are nowadays, because people like transparency, and masks cover up a lot of that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, do you think, that's what I was going to say, do you think masks cover that? I mean, masks really, at the end of the day, masks hide things, right?
Yes, they hide, but I think our masks really hide us from our true self. Because we become absorbed in those masks. We become absorbed in those roles. And now, granted, if you're an actor, and I think acting is one of those things that is I think art in general is a very pure way of looking at yourself. Mm-hmm. And the great artists of any sort of medium or genre are very good at being able to express
right.
those deeper things that the average person can't express. But I think a lot of times we're looking for somebody to reflect that back to us. So we look to those eyes of a stranger to find recognition or to find something about ourselves that either we don't recognize, we don't acknowledge, maybe we're afraid to, and that adds another layer of a mask, because that adds another mask. And I was thinking recently, because we just talked about this pre-rolling here, about the theater masks.
Oh, yeah.
And I came to this insight recently when I was writing some stuff, and I realized that the theater masks are like the perfect combination. They're like the yin and yang for art to me, because it shows, because we have both things in us. I think that those masks represent our good and our happy and our sad, but they represent all those things, the good, the bad. They represent the up, the down. Like, I think that they're a very good representation of our inner selves, and that self that we're constantly trying to
Do you think that
pull back and forth from.
Do you think people hide more from like the positives than the negatives, or the vice versa?
I think it depends on the person. I mean, look, if you're prone to negativity, you're always gonna until you start excavating it, man, and breaking it down and looking at it, you're always gonna like the negative is gonna be
Right.
always the I would say the
forefront?
in the forefront. Yeah, they're going to be the lead role. The negative is going to play the lead role, and the positive is going to be the supporting role.
Right.
Now, if you're a positive person, now that may be a mask though, because you may just be covering up. You know what I mean? But you're still going to lean towards that if you're a positive. If you always try to like keep things on a positive note, you can fool yourself into thinking you're happy all the time, and that can take center stage where the sad mask may be the supporting role. But
Yeah, I got
But
you.
I think at some point you have to bring them both out for their curtain calls and say, okay, what's really going on, man? What's in those eyes?
Right. It's weird. I'm just, as I'm listening to you talk and thinking about this, I'm like, I feel like, which makes sense though, now that I'm looking at it this way, but I feel like when I'm with like you, or like there's a certain amount of handful of people that I don't feel like I wear a mask with, you know?
I think we do to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I think there's I'm not saying it's necessarily negative.
Yeah.
But I think that we're so wrapped up in our own roles that we're always sort of trying to figure out what's real, what's not. It's that game of and we talk about Alan Watts a lot, but it's that game of hide and seek.
Yeah.
What are you hiding from? What are you seeking? It's all that stuff that's inside. It's like you're playing this game.
Same question over and over.
Right, it is. It's the same question over and over again. It's that conundrum of
Yeah.
the human condition that we're always, trying to be something. A lot of people spend a lot of time trying to be something they're not, when the truth is that every other person is taken. So why not just be yourself?
Yeah, I agree. And you're never going to be able to, I feel like, if you're not yourself, I think any kind of relationship or bond that you may form is going to be going to have like an underlying resentment to it.
Yeah, resentment, I think so. And I think if you're constantly wearing a mask, that resentment can become even a mask.
Here's one. I think that, like I said, I think there's times where I definitely don't wear a mask at certain times, but I think that certain people put a mask on me.
Huh.
I think that, like, let's say in a relationship, okay, some people, fall in love with this idea or image that they see, not the person you are without the mask on, right here, right now, sitting next to me. They don't see that. They see, well, maybe this, or there's this made up image, and they just put a mask on you. I think I have been guilty of people putting a mask on me.
I get that, because look, when you first meet, like, especially when it comes to like romantic kind of relationships, you always try to put on your best face.
Well, sure, yeah.
And then eventually that wears away. Eventually that makeup is gone, man. That grease paint just sweats off.
Right.
And eventually you're left with your non-made up face.
So that's why it's best to not wear the mask and just be who you are. That's what I mean.
It is, but I wonder though if sometimes people are I wonder if it's that people you perceive that people are putting masks on you, and it could just be that you're looking at it that way.
Could be.
Now, granted, some people may just have this idea of you, and they want this idea of you,
and they want that,
and they just don't, and you just aren't that idea,
right?
And ideas, as we know, are the scariest thing for most people. Like most people can't see an idea. Like an idea is just so dangerous to them because it crushes their paradigms to
Yeah, sure. Especially if it's something that's like out of the norm, or risk. If it's an idea that's a little bit of a risk, then
or if it's just because they're just so set in their own.
True.
They're set in their own soup, man. That it's like
they're set in their mask.
Yeah, I mean, they're so comfortable wearing that mask that they just don't want to see anything outside of it. They don't want to take it off. They want everybody to see them for that, and then they get stuck in this, and then they lose themselves in that role.
Do you think that masks are subconscious?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that is subconscious.
Okay.
I think a lot of times we don't realize it because it's subconscious. Because I think we learn to wear these masks as children. And and again, it all goes back to that. And it's crazy that, because the thing is, when you really break it down, man, there's only concepts, and most of these concepts are all the same concepts. We're just
like the ones that we're talking about.
Yeah. When it comes to like self-help and mental health and stuff, there's only so many real tried and true methods.
Right.
There's only so many methods of therapy. I mean, because people really are just taking those forms and creating something else out of them.
Sure.
But they're still at the basic level. At that basic bottom level, they're all the same concepts. There's only so many concepts.
I do feel that people get away from the concept though, and they build off it, and then they lose track of the foundation or the original
concept.
Yeah, I mean that's just me. I've noticed that because sometimes I'm like, oh, that's cool, and then I like read on more, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, that kind of like doesn't really go with this. So it's like.
You'll notice that though. There's a lot of that throughout
Yeah.
Throughout the wisdom traditions, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that allegory of why it's almost contradictory in a way. But it's contradictory because I think it's contradictory because it's supposed to it's more of a riddle than it is necessarily an answer. Because the answer is you.
Yeah.
Like you are the bottom, you are the answer to all of this.
The answer is this.
Right. Exactly. That's as close to you can smack me on the forehead.
That's the answer. I mean, you're right.
And granted, some of us play our roles, wear our masks so well, then we don't want to leave those masks behind.
Yeah.
Because they give us value. They provide worth. They provide gratification.
Right.
They provide all these things that you don't even realize that you're lacking because you haven't taken the mask off enough to say, who am I really? Like, who is the actor Will Foley and who is the real Will Foley? Like, and who's the real TPP and who's the guy playing TPP?
Well, it's funny because I think that, which I noticed this a while ago, but I think because of my anxiety, I would, in like a social setting or, maybe, if I was ever in like an uncomfortable, like I could see myself being like a comedian, like stand-up comedian, and like going on stage and doing something like completely like over the top or like inappropriate. Because of my anxiety. So, like, that's how I kind of, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I can see
almost
that.
Almost like being, if I would walk
kind of like the opposite of what you would normally do.
Kind of, yeah. And then just to be like, here, focus on this over here.
So you don't see the real.
Yeah.
Yeah, now, and I can see that too because I've always wanted to play a serial killer. In a movie. I've always wanted to be in a movie, in a horror movie, and be the killer. I have, because it's so opposite of what, Now, granted, those two parts are in you. Like again, that
There's
incredible
darkness
light and darkness
within,
are both in you. But it would be so almost like it would be so life altering to just be in an alter ego where I don't have to be me.
I get what you're saying. You can wear a mask.
Yeah, you can wear a mask the whole time, and you can still let out some of your stuff because you're always going to tap into whatever that real.
And then if somebody says something, you can be like, "Well, no, man, I'm
just playing the mask. Man. I'm just playing a character.
Just wearing a mask, man. It's just a mask. All right, cool. All right, I was just checking.
I really didn't want to cut those legs off, but that's what the script said, man.
Yeah, it's the mask's fault, man. Come on,
it's the mask. It's the
That's
role.
what you know. What it is. I feel like. I don't know. There's so many different emotions about a mask that I feel like some of it is like not having accountability.
There is. I mean, there's definitely an accountability question that you need to ask yourself.
Yeah.
Are you wearing a mask so you don't have to take account, so you don't have to be accountable for your actions?
Not in like a negative way, but just to again.
Well, I mean, I think if you're not being accountable,
yourself, like kind of McFly.
Well, that
McFly,
goes, but that goes across the board, though. I think you know what I mean.
Yeah.
If you have an accountability problem towards yourself, then chances are you may have other accountability problems.
Gotcha.
And because I think that they just all kind of, it's like Linus in the blanket. It just kind of all follows you around, man. That you're just carrying it. You're sucking on your thumb, and you're like, and that's all you hear when you're anxious,
right?
Is wah 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 wah. It doesn't sound like anything.
Yeah.
I know. Like when I think to some of my stuff, and there's times where in social situations, I'm definitely wearing a mask.
Yeah.
And then there's other, like, I noticed this though for myself, like when I play out, I don't really talk much.
Right.
Like in between sets, unless it's people I know. Like I've kind of really like I'm really socially awkward in that way.
Which is strange for me to hear because I see it and I'm like, you're like a natural when you do it. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that's your.
I'm so afraid that people are going to see the behind the mask.
Yeah.
Literally it all comes down to self-worth. And that's the biggest role that we need to take on is that role of worthiness.
Yeah.
And shame.
Do you feel that level of self-worth fluctuates?
Yes.
Like sometimes you're good and you're you know what I mean, if you're having a good night, say, and you're playing out, you're gigging, and you're like take that mask and you throw it on the side and you're doing whatever you're doing. You know?
Yeah, for the most part. I have a really hard time with like just starting conversations and stuff. I mean, I can jump in and stuff, but it's like really awkward to just kind of unless I have it. And granted, most of the time you gotta have a reason. Like there's got to be a reason. And and again, that's a mask. That's a mask that I've worn out.
Worn out.
I mean it. It's like
it's like the Phantom of the Opera one is half cracked, and
it's like the mental health one, man. Yeah. Quiet Riot one. It's that there's a chain. It's like it's it is. It's like ooh, yeah. That's a tough mask to take off. What masks you having a hard time letting go of?
I don't. I would probably say the other side of the yan or the yin, whatever, the sad face one. I think the sad face one can help, like, cover up, like, depression enough to where someone could see it and go, oh, he's not okay, but he's okay enough to where I don't really have to address it.
So do you think that gives people? Do you think that helps because then you don't have to talk about it? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Do you have this underlying sadness all the time? Or does it?
No, I don't think so.
Does it come and go, or is it a?
I think it's sort
Is
of
it
like,
situational?
no, I think it's. I mean, it can be for sure. I think that can aggravate it. But I think it's kind of there. I think it's kind of like a cloud. That's a little bit. I guess like a cloud. It can be dark some days, and it can, be nice and fluffy.
Fluffy.
Another day.
Can be like cotton.
It's so fluffy.
Cottonelle toilet paper.
Yeah.
Sleep on a cloud.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess I never really thought about it. But, yeah.
I think you gotta.
Yeah, you're right. But sometimes, like, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. There's so much, there's, you know what I mean? You're at the all-you-can-eat buffet. There's so much stuff there, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and you can only chew so much food at a time, man.
And you can get distracted by, that warm apple fritter that's sitting there,
Oh, dude, I was always like, when you go to the buffet, it was always that chocolate pudding, that fake chocolate pudding. Oh
Fake
my god,
chocolate pudding.
Fake chocolate pudding and mashed potatoes. That was always
And
my
fake mashed potatoes.
Fake mashed potatoes. You're right. You are right about that.
Dry
That's
oats,
true.
and then they mix it with like, ugh.
I'm okay with that though, because it tastes
That's all right. That's
damn
all right.
good.
It brings you back, man. Brings you back.
So I'm trying to think of how to like word this.
Word what? Masks?
Yeah, just like what are we looking for when we're looking at the masks? And
What are we looking for?
Yeah, what are we looking for? What are we trying to cover up? What are we?
Yeah.
Are we
Well, that's
covering up shame?
That's the question that we have to ask ourselves, like you said. I think we have to address it.
You have to acknowledge it and address it.
You have to acknowledge it and address it. I think you have to say, geez, maybe your struggle buddy can say, hey, you know what? Are you wearing a mask right now? And then you could be like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I am.
Huh?
And then
Because that's a new question.
That is a new question.
And
that's why I'm like,
and that's kind of like that's sort of what we're at as far as things go. Is that it's the questions that you ask that you get. You can't just ask, okay, how am I? Oh, I'm sad today.
right.
Okay, but no, okay, that's just so surface and so bullshit. That's
It can be bullshit for
it can
sure,
be
yeah.
bullshit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
you're not really asking you're not really.
And you can.
I mean, that could be a start.
And you
but-
can even kind of, trick the mind a little bit. And if someone asks you how you're doing, be like, oh, I'm great. I'm doing great today. Thanks for asking. How are you? And almost like hype yourself up. And then, if you continue that kind of like you're putting out that positivity, it may.
Well, yeah, it can counteract anything because, fake it till you make it does have a certain amount of value to it. It
Sure.
does. I think, though, when you become delusional that
When
everything
you
is
live
okay.
you can use it as like a
You can use it as a crutch too,
a
man.
distraction. But if you use it as a daily a daily tool, then it's gonna be destructive. It's gonna be a hammer that ends up hitting you back in the head or something.
Well, yeah, anything can be destructive if you look at it in a destructive way, or you use it in a destructive manner.
Right.
I mean, the best things in the world could be used in a destructive manner. You can drive your car, you know what I mean? You can drive your car down a wooded road and just look at all the leaves, or you can drive your car into a mass of people and kill them all. I mean, you can seriously. I mean, it's not.
No, I know.
Happy thoughts. We think happy thoughts here.
Yeah, happy thoughts. Will's talking about.
That's right.
I always wanted to play a serial killer, and
Will Foley's happy thoughts. That's right.
Happy thoughts with Will.
That's right.
Well, Will's knee deep in happy thoughts right now.
Balls deep, man.
Balls deep in happy thoughts.
Yeah, happy thoughts.
Happy masks.
Happy mask, absolutely.
Yeah,
The
happy masks.
smiling mask. Like that smiling mask can be a detriment too, though.
Sure. Similar to like a toxic positivity thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Where you're just like you delude yourself of like any reality.
Right. And I think if you have that on, I'm kind of looking at it from the opposite side, the opposite view. If somebody else sees you and you have this happy face on all the time, they might be like, well, Will's always happy. Maybe he can do this or maybe he can do that. And then they're like, they're kind of setting you up, like giving you that image, like you're always happy.
Right.
You know?
And then you could fall into that.
Right.
And I think that's where you lose yourself is like, okay, all these people think I'm happy. Do I act like that? Because I don't feel like that all the time.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you lose, I think, because there's that false sense of belonging.
Do you think we put too much emphasis on having people see what we want them to see?
Oh,
and what we're too afraid to let them see?
Yeah. Yep. Because going back, we did an episode a week or so ago about anxiety, and I think most people aren't necessarily focused on you and saying, Jesus, he got a they're worried about themselves,
right?
Maybe even thinking the same thing you are, like, oh, I'm anxious. I don't know what this person's thinking, and I'm not really thinking about if you're anxious. I'm thinking
because you're thinking about your own anxiety,
right? So so it's like, I think I don't know. It's hard to say. Everybody's different. Some people might take it in a negative way and maybe even react in a negative way. But
well, that's them, though.
Yeah, that's
the eyes
sure.
right. That's the eyes. Are you seeing a reflection of you, or are you imposing a reflection on them?
Sure.
Or are they imposing are they imposing a picture of you? Like,
yeah. And they can even be, again, they can kind of put the mask on you. Whatever they want to see you, whatever they think mask you should be wearing, they kind of put it on you.
Yeah.
Even if you're not wearing a mask.
Sure. I think we do, though. I think we do, pardon me, a lot of the time, especially when it comes to dealing with strangers and to dealing with people like for the first time and stuff. Because you want, you have this, and granted, we all get caught up in our own image.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't mean image in the the basic, tick tube, Insta fake way. I'm talking about like image as far as like what we want people to see as opposed to what we really see.
Right.
And what they may see.
And again, it's almost, that's your ego, really, because it's like, who are you to say what I want to see? You know what I mean? You may come and be totally real and just transparent and be like, today fucking sucks and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you're right, man, it does. Let's talk about it. You know what I mean? You may actually make a connection without the mask on.
That's true. Because some people may that I've really tried to be that.
Right.
Like I really made like doing this every week like makes you have to do that. Because now, I mean, for me.
No, yeah.
Because I couldn't keep doing this every week.
Right.
If it wasn't going to be real. Like this is
real,
like I'm not.
We're raw.
I'm not making shit up. Like
we don't necessarily walk. We don't just walk the walk. We don't necessarily just talk the talk. We walk the walk.
Right, and we stumble on the path.
Oh, sure we do.
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day we stumble on the path.
Every day there's a rock.
Now, do you think that it's our ego that really creates the masks?
That's a great question.
Is it all ego, or
I don't think it's all ego. No.
No.
Because like you said earlier, like, is it part part subconscious?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's a variation of egos, subconscious, even even conscious, you know? Because if you know, like, you're going to go into a social situation and throw on that mask to just kind of break the ice, so to speak, you know?
Well, what about non-social situations in the mirror?
Oof.
That, you know what I mean? When does it, like, how do you know you're not wearing a mask when you're looking at yourself in the mirror?
That's a great question. That's a yeah. I mean, I feel like, and we always say this, like it all goes back to self-worth.
It does. It always seems to come that way,
seem to
man.
come
You know,
back
it always
around,
like
man.
Brene Brown and shame. Like, there's a reason why she had come to all these, you know, she had all these come to Jesus moments, man, where
Right?
it was like, you know,
Yeah,
shame and self-worth. And
I don't know, that's a question that I would have to ponder for sure.
well, maybe that's what we need to do, man. Maybe we need to ask that question this week. Are you looking in the mirror and seeing yourself? Are you seeing your mask or whatever, you know, whatever role it is that you're playing? Are you really looking at yourself in a way? Are you asking the right questions about what you are seeing?
And and do you even want to look in the mirror?
No, so many people don't. And I think
You
that
know?
that's what keeps them, but that's what keeps them stuck. You know what I mean? It's like, no one can do the work but you, just like no one can do the push-ups but you.
Yeah.
You can't hire somebody to do your push-ups for you. You can only do them. So it's like, you gotta take it off, man. You gotta like let it go. But I think people get caught up in it so much that they don't know enough about themselves to say that they're even wearing a mask.
Yeah. Yeah, you're up
Because they're like, well, no, this is who I always been. But is it?
right.
You know, is it really? I mean,
You just got to kind of sit back and say, how many times must I live this tragedy? How many more lies will they tell me?
yeah,
All I want is the same as everyone.
it's either a comedy or a tragedy. I think that's the balance of life, you know. That's the beauty of the polls, man. Comedy or tragedy.
What does everybody else think about that?
Yeah, tell us. Tell us.
Tell us.
Tell us. Not to tell you, tell us.
You can find us on any of the social media, whatever you want to call them, sites.
Yeah, call them
Platforms.
sites. Yeah, platforms. That's what they are. They're platforms.
Yeah, you can find us on any of those. You can listen to us on Spotify, on Apple, and wherever you podcast.
TuneIn, radio.com, YouTube. You can find us on YouTube.
You can find us on YouTube, sure.
All the episodes are starting to filter into YouTube now.
You can find us at the local fishing spot.
No, not really.
I know.
Nice try, though.
I tried.
Yeah.
On that note,
Willie don't fish.
share,
Although it would probably be kind of cool, man.
share, star, subscribe.
See, the mask came off there. Just I don't fish. People
It
are
is.
like, "What do you mean you don't fish?"
Hey, that's all right.
But I'm not opposed to it. I just don't think I want to stick that hook in another thing.
Worm
Just
or-
to
Yeah, I never like taking it out of the fish.
yeah, I can imagine. And those hooks really do some damage to those fish, man.
Could be. I don't know. I'd have to ask a fish.
I don't think they're going to answer you, though. Because they're wearing a mask, too. They're wearing the mask of fish.
You can tune a piano, but you can't tune a fish.
That's right. That's a great REO Speedway, you know.
All right, folks. I think that's
That's a wrap.
a wrap.
That's a wrap. Stick a fork in it.
Stick a fork in Will.
Yeah.
And stick a fork in that sausage that's laying on the table.
And have a drink of root beer.
Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope that you tune in next week.
That's right. So until next week, be well.
Be safe.
Be above.